Hi there, Stampin' friends. This is Kathy Seminara from SemiStampers. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Huntingtown, Maryland. If you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would be happy to be yours. Just head over to my store at www.semistampers.stampinup.net and click on the Shop Now button. Today, I have a 5-card kit to show you that you can earn for free with a minimum of a $35 order and using the host code BA9KMPYM. I will send you all the parts and pieces to make these 5 cards, including envelopes. I will also include a PDF with the directions. But before we get going on the card kit, I want to remind you that today is September 10th. That means that we only have 20 more days for the celebration that Stampin' Up! Is offering. This is the best sale that they offer every year. For every $50 or $100 order, you can go into the celebration brochure and select a free product. And if you have a big wish list, you can earn or you can purchase a starter kit for $99 plus tax. This $99 kit allows you to purchase $125 worth of Stampin' Up! Products from any of their catalogs. It also allows you to choose from one of these 12 bundles in the celebration brochure. These bundles include stamp sets, either a die set, or punch, and they range in price from $30, $31 to $61, and you can choose one of those for free. In addition, all forwarding orders that you have, you get up to a 25%, you begin with a 20% discount. So you can be a happy discount shopper. You don't have to do what I'm doing or any of the other Stampin' Up! Demonstrators do on Facebook Live. You can just be a happy shopper. So for those of you who know me, know that I am a summer girl, but some of my favorite colors are those of fall. Quite a conundrum. So what am I to do? Well, I'm going to play with pumpkins, of course. Here on page 48 of the July to December mini catalog is a bundle called Pretty Pumpkins. This is the bundle that I am featuring today. This bundle includes a red rubber cling stamp set with pumpkins and leaves and vines and sentiments. This one is my favorite one. If friends were pumpkins, I'd pick you. This bundle comes with a die set called Detail Pumpkins to cut out the stamped images, the pumpkins and the leaves, and it also has this fun filigree pumpkin. Let's get started, shall we? My first card today, I'm calling Block Border. This card was inspired by Lisa Curcio. It begins with a piece of Cajun Craze cardstock that is cut at 11 by 4 1/4 and scored at 5 1/2. I will fold on the score line and give it a burnish with the bone folder. And we'll set this to the side for just a second. Next, I have a piece of very vanilla cardstock that I have run through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and textured it with the Tasteful Textiles 3D embossing folder. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but it's embossed. Next, I have 4 pieces of designer series paper from Beauty of the Earth package, and these measure 1 by 2 3/4 and 3/4 by 3 3/4. With adhesive, I'm going to attach the first piece in the upper left-hand corner. Now I'm leaving a slight margin at the top and on the side. I'm taking the fatter one and I am placing it also on the left with a slight margin in between the piece above, and I'm lining up the sides here. Next, I'm taking the third piece of designer series paper and I'm lining it up along this edge, and then the last piece will go right along the bottom. And I like the multi-purpose liquid glue because of its wiggle properties, especially on a piece of cardstock that has been embossed and textured. Next, I will use the adhesive to adhere this to the card base. We'll set this aside for just a minute. Next, I will take a rectangle rather, of Very Vanilla that measures 4 by 5 1/4. Let me get this out of the way. And using Memento black ink, I will stamp the sentiment "Gathered Together" top. Clean off my stamp. I will take the larger leaf vine image and stamp that just underneath. Clean it off. And lastly, the pumpkin trio. And there we go. Using Stampin' Blends, I will color in the leaves and the vine and the pumpkins. I like to put a little yellow on the edges of my leaves because I just think that it adds to it. You know, leaves aren't one color, and I'm following the lines of the leaves in dark Old Olive. This yellow was dark Daffodil Delight, and now I'm using light Old Olive to fill in the rest. And because these are alcohol markers, they will dry fairly quickly, and you have to let the alcohol evaporate a little bit so the colors will kind of mush together and blend. Okay, I'm not going to bore you coloring the whole thing. But what I did next, after I colored in the pumpkins and the vine, I took it to my Stampin' Cut and Die machine and I die cut these out. bringing back my card base. Cut the vine out, the pumpkins, and with paper snips, I cut around the sentiment. I pop the pumpkins up on Stampin' Dimensionals, and taking the backs off, I will adhere this down to the bottom left of the card front. Then taking a mini glue dot, I will put it behind the H on together, just one. And then I will grab my vine. This was the easiest way I could corral these two together because I wanted to make them overlap a little bit. And once I got them where I liked, I gave them a little pinch. Then I turned them over and got some mini Stampin' Dimensionals. And put some on here. And once again, removing the backs. I will place this on the card front in the upper right, toward the upper right corner. And there we have our first card. Block border, gathered together. Okay. My second card, I'm calling Evergreen Filigree Pumpkin. This card was inspired by Libby Fens. I found her card on Pinterest. It begins with a traditional card base of 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4. Again, I will fold it on the score line and burnish with a bone folder. Next, I have a piece of Designer Series paper in the Pale Papaya that measures 3 3/4 by 5.5. With Evening Evergreen ink, I will stamp my favorite saying from this set, "If friends were pumpkins, I'd pick you." That's kind of a nice saying to get on a card, don't you think? Okay, now I'll stamp this at the bottom. There we go. My Evening Evergreen ink pad was a little juicy, so I got some on my finger, which I hope wash it off. Okay. Next, I will take some adhesive again, and I will put it in the back. And now we will adhere this to the card base with about 1/4 inch on either side. Okay, we'll set that aside for a minute. Next, I took a piece of Evening Evergreen cardstock that measured approximately 4 by 2.5, and I die cut a detailed pumpkin and 1 leaf. Taking my silicone craft mat and a little bit of multi-purpose liquid glue, This silicone craft mat is a lifesaver when you have die cuts like this, because no adhesive sticks to this. So I squirted a little bit of glue, and I have a Stampin' Sponge that I cut a wedge out of, and I'm going to dab the glue onto the pumpkin. Doing it this way, you won't have glue squishing out all over the place where you don't want it. Bringing back my card base, I will adhere this to the front of the card. Next, I have a scrap piece of basic white. I will take the Leafy Pumpkin image and the Cajun Craze ink. I will ink up my stamp. And I will stamp. There we go. Next, I have a scrap of pale papaya that's approximately 2 by 2.5, and I die cut the detailed pumpkin with the stripes. After my leafy pumpkin dried a little bit, I also die cut the leafy pumpkin. Now, a little trick I want to show you with this. I want to put another darker color of pumpkin pie in these stripes. The easiest way I found to do it was to take a scrap of pumpkin pie cardstock. In my stash, it ended up being a circle. And then lay the die cut on top of the scrap, taking a pencil, trace around the pumpkin. You don't need the stem. With paper snips, cut it out roughly. You don't need exact. And then with a little bit of adhesive, whoop, my pumpkin was running away on me. And you only need a little bit. Come on, this bottle is new. There we go. Come on, fella. You can lay your pumpkin pie cardstock right down on the back. And there you have a pale papaya pumpkin with pumpkin pie stripes. Easy peasy. Now let's finish putting this card together. I'm taking a glue dot once again, and I am putting it on the back of the Evening Evergreen leaf that I die cut in the beginning. I'm going to snuggle it right up against the stem of the pumpkin and give it a little push, little pinch. I'm doing the same thing with a scrap piece of Just Jade that I die cut another leaf from. We'll glue dot this on the back. Well, let me see, which way do I want it pointing? Okay, this way. And we will snuggle this around the pale papaya pumpkin. I'm doing it left-handed, that's why I'm having such a time. Okay. All right, so with adhesive, we'll take our leafy pumpkin and we'll put it right just below the filigree pumpkin. Now we'll take Stampin' Dimensionals and we'll pop up the papaya pumpkin. Again, taking off the backs. It's easier to stamp your sentiment first because that helps you placing your pumpkins. And we'll put this little guy right here and he'll be popped up. And there we have our evening evergreen filigree pumpkin. Okay. Our next card I'm calling White Pumpkin. I saw a lot of pumpkins like this on Pinterest and I thought I will try it. Except I didn't know that I would end up with a pumpkin like this. Because when I first decided to design this card, my first thought was it was going to be an orange pumpkin. But no, I'll show you what happened. This card begins with a card base of crumb cake, 11 by 4 1/4, and scored at 5 1/2. Again, burnish with your bone folder. I will take the small vine image and crumb cake. Oops. Crumb cake ink, and I will stamp randomly around the edge, the edge of the card front, going off the edges. You don't have to have everything on. This just gives it a little bit of an interest. Won't be so blah. Okay, that should be good. Next, I took a 5 by 3 3/4 inch rectangle of basic white that I ran it through the stitched rectangle dies. With adhesive, I will attach it to the front. After I die cut it, it came out to be about 3 by 4 3/8, that size. And there we go. Next, I took a rectangle, approximately 3 by 4 1/4, thereabouts, and I die cut it with the largest curvy shape of the stitched So Sweetly dies. Now, before I adhere it to the card, I will take soft seafoam ink and another piece of Stampin' Sponge. I will dab it and then rub in a diagonal direction. Just to give it a little color. And that's it. Again, with adhesive, I will attach it, adhere it to the card front. Now, as I said before, when I first thought about this card, I thought, oh, I'll make orange pumpkins. But, whoops, as I was working on completing this card, I first stamped, sorry about that, trio of pumpkins. In Memento Basic Black. And then I thought, you know what, I will do the shading of the pumpkins. Let me try doing it with a dark crumb cake. And so I started this. Here, I think I used the brush end. And I thought, you know what, I kind of like that as it is. So I left it like that. I colored it in. Then I die cut it out and popped it up on dimensionals. Take my dimensionals off. Take the backings off. And then I will adhere it to the card front. Then I thought this little guy needs some bling. So I took my holiday rhinestones and even though these are, I believe this color is Coastal Cabana, but I thought, you know what, it goes well with the soft sea foam. So I'll just give a little 1, 2, 3, and there we go. Our next card, white pumpkins. Okay, that one's all done. My next card I'm calling Case the Caddy. On page 48 of the catalog, you will find this picture. This card begins with a cinnamon cider card base, traditional card base of 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Fold on the score line, burnish with a bone folder. Next, I have a piece of Cajun Craze cardstock that measures 3.5 by 5, and I have embossed it with the Bark 3D folder. Using adhesive, I will adhere it to the card front at an angle. This is not straight on purpose. Next, I have a rectangle measuring 3 3/4 by 4 3/4 of Beauty of the Earth Designer Series paper. And I will adhere this to the top of the Cajun Craze. And this one I will adhere straight. And it plays tricks with your eyeballs when you adhere a straight piece on top of a crooked piece. Next, I die cut that filigree pumpkin in basic white. And again, bringing in my silicone craft sheet. Where's that? Okay. I wanted to put the glue back on the same spot. And there's somebody trying to buy some stuff from Stampin' Up! Okay, I will add glue to the back of my pumpkin. And I will adhere that to the card front. Next, using a scrap piece of basic white and Cajun Craze ink, I will stamp the pumpkin trio again. Okay. Now with a piece of, well, I have my stamp pad out, with a piece of Just Jade that measures 1 by 3 3/4, I will stamp the sentiment "Gather Together" in Cajun Craze. Okay. Let me close this up before I have an accident. I put my hand in it. Okay. I took the pumpkin trio to the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and I die cut it out. Popped it up on dimensionals. Took off the backings, and I placed it down at the bottom of the pumpkin. Now using adhesive, I adhered the Just Jade strip with the sentiment, snuggled it up just underneath the pumpkins, so it looks like the pumpkins are sitting on it. And there you have the Case the Caddy pumpkin card. Now for my last card, I'm calling it Leafy Pumpkin. Put the cap on there. Leafy Pumpkin. This one begins with a card base of pumpkin pie that measures 11 by 4 1/4 and scored at 5 1/2. I have a piece of In Good Taste Designer Series paper with the burlap side up that measures 5 by 3 3/4, excuse me. Using adhesive, I will adhere this to the card front. Here, I did that a little crooked, so that's why I like multi-purpose liquid glue. Okay, now I die cut from a piece of Very Vanilla. I die cut the second largest scalloped contour dies rectangle. Here I will stamp in pumpkin pie the sentiment, "So thankful for you." I know in my sample I had, "If friends were pumpkins, I'd pick you." But I thought, you know what? We need to give this guy a little love. So I'll stamp him in the upper right-hand corner. Ooh. Had a little avalanche with my stamp pads here. Okay. With adhesive, I will now adhere this to the card front. Make sure you stamp first in case you make a mistake. Okay. So now on a piece of approximately 2.5-inch square of pale papaya, again using Cajun Craze, I will stamp the Leafy Pumpkin. There we go. And then I will stamp the trio of pumpkins using Memento Black. And this I will stamp on a scrap of Very Vanilla. Now I will color in the pumpkins with Stampin' Blends, and I will die cut the 2 images from the detailed pumpkin dies, and now we will build our card. Using adhesive, I will place the Leafy Pumpkin in the lower left. And again, popping up the pumpkin trio on dimensionals. I'll place it down right there. And using the Artisan adhesive, I'm not saying that correctly. What are they called? Artistry Bloom adhesive backed sequence. Okay, had to get that right. I'll use the Calypso Coral, I believe these ones are. And I'll put one here. One here. And how about a little one? I'll put them up here, like a little triangle. Okay, and that is our last card. Okay, my friends, we are done. Let me bring in all the cards. Okay. Let me bring in all the cards. And here it is. It was trying to hide on me. My filigree pumpkin. Okay. Can you see them all here? Okay, remember friends, if you want this card kit, you can go to my website at www.semistampers.stampinup.net and use the host code BA9KMPYM and spend $35 or more, and I will send you the card kit with all the cut pieces and embossed pieces and the PDF and the envelopes. I'll send you the whole thing. And remember, this host code will be open until Friday, September 24th. Okay, Stampin' Friends, that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching my Playing with Pumpkins video, as much as I've enjoyed making it for you. Until next time, stay safe, everyone, and happy stamping.